we have a pretty strong labor market. People who want jobs have jobs, and you could go out and relatively easily find a job. If that starts to deteriorate and we start to enter protracted downturn that might lead to a recession, and people start getting laid off, not only will they have trouble buying things at the supermarket, they won't have money to buy them because they don't have a job. And all that would be blamed on the Biden administration and in turn on Kamala Harris. And you already see the Trump campaign and Republicans starting to tie Kamala Harris to to Joe Biden's economic policies.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by economics reporter Zach Halaschak. Zach, there's a new Democratic candidate for vice president, assuming once the Democratic convention ratifies the nomination. You've written about Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's economic record as governor of Minnesota. What did you learn?
Yeah, so Tim Walz has been governor of Minnesota since 2019, and he's pretty progressive, pretty much on the liberal left side of the party when it comes to economic issues. Some of the banner priorities he's had was making school lunches free for not just students who are poor, but for all students, regardless of family income. I think that makes Minnesota one of like 8 states in the entire country that has that progressive of a policy. He also
Sloppy Joes for all.
Sloppy Joes for all. That's his saying.
Yeah.
He supports more spending. I was talking to some economists who are saying that he's, compared to other states, it was one of the states that spent the most. Just a pretty liberal guy across the board. He also supported free education for students whose families earn less than $80,000 per year at all public schools. That's controversial too, because Republicans are hitting him because that includes undocumented immigrants, illegal immigrants. So that's going to be a line of attack I think you'll see from the Trump campaign going forward.
So we've gotten some good economic news on mortgage rates. What is it?
Yeah, so mortgage rates actually came down by a pretty noticeable degree. I think it was the biggest drop in over a year. And basically, that's good news because mortgage rates make home buying more unaffordable for consumers, and they've been high for some time now as the Fed keeps its interest rate target high. They were actually over 8% at the end of last year, which is the highest they've been really since the turn of the century, the dot-com bubble, that time period. And now they're going down to around 6.5%, I think, is the most recent number. So that's a pretty notable decline from that 8% crest. And why that is because we recently got a lackluster jobs report. So it showed that unemployment rose to 4.3% from 4.1%. And most economists had expected it was going to remain right at 4.1% and not tick up. Mm-hmm. So that kind of sent expectations of what's to come next. Wall Street kind of went into a tailspin. They're thinking, does this mean that the economy is starting to slow, that we could be going into a recession? And that raises, and that kind of makes the Fed more likely to cut rates quicker and by a higher degree. And mortgage rates tend to track somewhat close to what happens with the Fed's interest rate target. So the idea that interest rates might be going down quicker and sooner is kind of something that's driven that recent decline in mortgage rates. But good news for consumers are the ones kind of reaping the benefits of that right now.
Now, if there's a recession, however, or any kind of economic slowdown, that would be bad news, both for consumers, but also presumably for Vice President Kamala Harris.
Yeah, it would really be a worst-case scenario for her campaign. Right now, the way things stand with the economy is consumers are upset. They don't like the economy right now, but that's largely because of inflation. It's because the things that they're buying at the store now are almost around 20% more than they were when Joe Biden was sworn in January 2021. But we have a pretty strong labor market. People who want jobs have jobs, and you could go out and relatively easily find a job. If that starts to deteriorate and we start to enter protracted downturn that might lead to a recession, and people start getting laid off, not only will they have trouble buying things at the supermarket, they won't have money to buy them because they don't have a job. And all that would be blamed on the Biden administration and in turn on Kamala Harris. And you already see the Trump campaign and Republicans starting to tie Kamala Harris to Joe Biden's economic policies, even though obviously the vice president doesn't have much of a role in actually shaping policy.
Right.
They're kind of hitching her wagon to his. And so if there is some sort of downturn, if the unemployment rate keeps rising, undoubtedly it would be a worst case scenario for the Harris campaign.
Thank you, Zach. You can read Zach and the rest of our policy team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.